مساء الخير. ضيفنا اليوم غني عن التعريف. بطل ال NBA عام 2002 ولعب مع أكثر من نادي أمريكي كبير منهم ميامي هيت ولوس أنجلوس ليكرز. عرفته الجماهير السورية والعربية من خلال احترافه بنادي الجلاء السوري ونادي الحكمة اللبناني. معنا اليوم السوبر ستار ساماكي وولكر. ساماكي, good evening. How are you?
Thanks for having me. All is well. All is well. You know, no complaints. Life is good. Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome to be able to reconnect with the Syrian fans. So thank you for your time.
We are so happy to have you with us today. Everyone still remember your time in Syria and speaks very highly of you. You are a legend. You are a superstar, Samaki.
Oh man, I'm honored. You know, I'm all smiles right now, man. You know, my time in Syria was great. I had an awesome experience. From the time I landed, you know, I was treated like family. And so obviously playing 2 seasons there after winning the first championship, coming back again for a second one and actually winning the second title, you know, in Syria was awesome, man. So just being able to share that experience with my teammates, number one, and the Syrian fans, seeing how big basketball was in Syria was an awesome experience.
We're going to talk more about your experience with Al Jala, also in other places like Lebanon, the NBA. But first, let me ask you, you had an amazing career. In 2007, you had a lot of offers as well, as we know. What was your motivation to come to Syria and play for Al Jala?
Well, it all starts when I was a kid. For me, you know, basketball was taught as a platform, you know, and, you know, it wasn't necessarily taught, you know, I was going to the NBA, but my dad always saw basketball as a way to travel the world. And as a young kid, I remember him holding a basketball and saying, this would take you around the world. He saw how the NBA was expanding and basketball beyond borders. And it's interesting how sports, unlike politics and things that builds borders through sports, we have an opportunity to go beyond borders and walls and barriers. And so, you know, Syria was an awesome experience. I feel like that it was an interesting place. I heard a lot about, you know, the Middle East in particular. And I wasn't too sure. You hear all about the other countries, Europe, things of that nature. And, you know, I did Russia, was my first stop. But Syria, it intrigued me. And once we got the phone call, my agent got the phone call and it came up, you know, for me, it was like, you know, it was a no-brainer because for me, it was about experience now. It wasn't just about basketball. It was more so, where can I go and have an entirely new experience that I haven't had? Once I got to Syria, it blew my mind. You know, from day one, the experience, the type of freedom that I had to be able to walk around and enjoy and meet people, and people who were curious about, you know, me and were shocked that I was there as a, you know,
as an NBA player, it's unheard of, like to play in Syria. That's why it was like, yeah, a big decision, I'm sure for you. And also it was like a big thing as well for the Syrian basketball league.
Man, you know, and it seemed like it was really a God sent experience for me, because then I meet, you know, Mishel, who
Mishel
I highly respect. Mishel Madali,
yes.
Who I highly respect as one of the best basketball players, you know, that I've seen. And I've played with a lot of basketball players, you know, around the world. And he's one of the best. And to experience that and discover that in Syria was amazing. It really educated me and woke me up about not only the impact of basketball on the global scale, but just how many really good basketball players there are, you know, around the world that don't carry the NBA title, you know. And so that was my initial experience when I got to Syria.
What were your first thoughts maybe when you had that first like live experience with those players and also first training with Al Jalaa players?
Well, they did a really good job of making me understand actually who Jalaa was as it pertains to their identity. And so right away, I was able to pick up on that, and I felt like it was a really big deal. You know, I took it, you know, like a very seriously, like a professional. And this was a team that had a winning tradition.
Yeah.
And so, you know, which was a big deal for me, you know, as an NBA player to come over and not be able to have success. It's not a good look. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I thought it was very important to come over and establish myself. So I think early on, the first practice, I really wanted to showcase my, I guess, commitment to the team. It was very important for them to understand that, yes, I played in the NBA, but, you know, I'm just a regular person who has the same goal as you guys. And that's making sure that Al Jalaa stays at the top, you know, as it pertains, you know, to the basketball program. And so, you know, credit to the management, to everyone who participated and carrying that energy, because I thought it was a very good job of executing, you know, what we call the Jalaa way.
طريقة الجلاء. طريقة الجلاء. And talking of Al Jalaa, Jalaa, as you know, as you talked about as well, is a massive club in Syria, in the Syrian basketball as well. Did you have any offers from other Syrian clubs at that time, maybe in 2007 or later after, at a later stage in your career?
Yes, there were, you know, once, you know, clubs seen that I was willing to come over, you know, obviously there were other offers, but I was very fortunate, you know, when I landed with Jalaa, and I landed with the best club, you know, in Syria. Obviously, you had Ittihad, who was very highly respected, and very, you know, a top, very good team as well, and very competitive. And one of my best experience playing in, you know, was playing against them, you know, because it reminded me of very high level basketball. You're talking about competition at its highest.
It's a derby game. So, it's like the derby.
Oh man,
yeah, both teams in the same.
It's amazing. Oh man, it's amazing. You know, to be able to experience a game like especially a big game, a very important, to say for instance, the Jalaa, you know, Ittihad game, in which the minute you get there, you see the fans. A lot of the fans are already outside of the arena, and you know they're like arm's length away, and so it's really hands-on experience. You know, there's a lot of curiosity, a lot of unknown, which, you know, I really like personally, because it really took me outside of my comfort zone. And I think if you're going to experience something and really experience something, you have to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone. And, you know, seeing the soldiers at the game and things of that nature was new. You know, with the guns and things of that nature. And I thought this was like, wow, this is awesome. You know, this is awesome. And not once was I ever in fear. It was just another experience that I was like, wow, you know, that I'm actually getting a chance to be a part of the Syrian experience just for a moment.
Everyone who plays in Syria talks highly of the fans and the environment and how intense sometimes can be the games. But part of your experience, which as well I want to actually hear from you, is living in Halab. You lived in Halab in 2008, and also you went back in 2010. Tell me more about this. How did you find Halab?
Wow. It was one of the most refreshing, revitalizing, you know, eye-opening experience, because, you know, for the first time in my life, I think I had one of the most eye-opening shifts, you know, for me.
It was so different for you.
It was totally different, but the people were so genuine. living in Halal, being able to get up, walk to practice freely.
Eating nice food, yes? You lived in Al-Aziziyah. You told me before the interview, that's the town center of Halal.
Yeah, man. So the restaurants were amazing. You know, the food, being able, there was so many different restaurants you had to choose from. I mean, even on the corner of the street, you can go get your shawarma, you can, you know, whatever you wanted, you know, it's right there. You have to be careful because the food was so rich and so good and so heavy.
What was your favorite?
Oh man, you know, it's hard because it's even from the fattoush, from the salad, everything for me was different. It's different tastes. And so I think what I did was just allow myself to be open and enjoy everything that I could. And I don't know if there's really just one favorite. I mean, even the meat, you know, it was obviously the way the meat there is fresher. You know, you notice the difference. I'll tell you an experience I had. In the morning, they had a truck would come by with all the veggies, the fresh vegetables and everything on there. And you would hear the guy basically call in or ring the bell. And I thought that was so amazing that I could go pick off fresh vegetables off the truck. I mean, vegetables that look like they just came from the ground. Was amazing. I was in some of the best shape of my life while in Syria. Amazing. I go back and look at my pictures and how trim and how in shape I was because I was eating very clean and healthy. And I was practicing, you know, obviously twice a day. And so.
Did you practice Arabic there as well?
Sure.
Shway. What's your favorite Arabic word?
Yeah, but no. I learned a lot. The thing about was Syria was I was spoiled because all my teammates spoke English. And so when you talk about education and things of that nature, a lot of my teammates were engineers. Some were, I had, you know, my teammate Abu was a doctor. And so this was a different experience for me, playing with guys who also worked and were professionals beyond basketball as well.
What message?
So I have a lot of respect.
He is now the manager of Al Jalal right now.
Oh, really?
Yes. What message would you say to him now? He's managing a very young Al Jalal team.
Number one, he's the right guy because he's always, if you know, he's always been really level-headed. And so he knows how it takes a level-headed coach to be able to communicate to young players because when you're teaching young players, it's tough times. So the message, you know, that I would get is that be patient. Obviously, when you're training young players, you know, you have to take your time. You have to teach from the fundamentals on up. And I think that he's that kind of person. I think that he understands details. He comes across as a very detailed person. And so I'm not surprised, you know, that he's, you know, the head guy and that, you know, they picked the right guy for this job.
He's an amazing guy, actually. Recently, we had Mishal Madali, your friend. We interviewed him. He spoke very highly of you. So he said, you are actually one of the best players he ever played with, or among the best players he ever played with. What are your thoughts of Mishal Madali?
Wow. You know, it was awesome. When I first met him, I'll be honest, it was like, this guy has so much confidence. And I was in shock at first because I had never saw him play before, but I heard so much about him. And obviously, you know, me playing with guys from in the NBA, I didn't have really high expectations in the beginning. But after watching him play, playing with him in practice, oh my God, it was a different respect level right away. That he understands the game, you know, and I say this in all seriousness. He reminds me of Kobe from a mentality standpoint because he was always working on his game. Like with him, it was basketball, 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 basketball.
Very hardworking
And
person.
a very hardworking person. And it reminds me that mentality was the same way Kobe was. You know, he didn't cheat the game. You know, even when he got injured, you know, Mitchell, he worked his body back into play and was able to play a long career. This is a mentality. This is a not give up mentality. And so I was very fortunate to have a teammate, you know, like, and plus I needed the guy that good because the Syrian basketball level was very high. It was higher than most people expected. So, and he wasn't the only good player I played with, man. You know, we had a really good team, you know, in general. And the guys liked each other. I'm sorry?
Who did impress you as well, besides Misho Madali?
You know what?
حكمة حداد. I can give you some names. Sharif al-Sharif, Wissam Yaqub.
I always loved Sharif. Sharif was my guy because I love his intensity. Sharif was a deer. He can run the floor nonstop. He had incredible energy. Was so quick. And that's what I loved about our team because everybody brought something different. You know, sorry, you know, it's my guy could really spread the floor, was a catch and shoot guy, was very dangerous. And you had to be up on him right away because if he didn't, he can shoot the ball at a very high percentage. And so it really gave me room for guys not to be able to double team. And it opened the floor up for Michel as well.
Do you think some of those players could have played in the NBA?
I think, honestly, Michel, from a talent standpoint, was the guy. You know, the NBA is a very tough league. And Michel was a guy who was able to go in other leagues around the world and play and be successful, you know, such as China.
Philippines, Holland.
And he was able to leave a mark wherever he played at. Wherever he played, he was able to leave his name. And so from an ability standpoint, I thought he had enough athleticism to be able to play. I think the athleticism part is important. You have very talented players, really big and athletic players in the NBA. And so having the ability to create space is very important. And Mitchell had the ability with the ball handling skills, with the shooting, and enough basketball IQ to be able to play at the highest level, in my opinion.
You played so in Lebanon and also in Syria, very similar countries, but maybe the basketball level is different. What can you tell us about the differences between the basketball in Lebanon and also in Syria?
At that time, the basketball in Lebanon was a little higher. You had, even you had guys like Ronnie Cycli, not, you know, if you're familiar with that name, but original was Lebanese player who played with the Miami Heat, long-time career in the NBA, great player, Lebanese player. And so you had guys who from Lebanon who already had made their mark. You know, you had more NBA guys who played in Lebanon. Even when I was there, we had two other guys who had played in the NBA that was playing in Lebanon at the time. However, the competition with the team Al-Jalal was as good as any team in Lebanon. You know, obviously the league in Lebanon was a tougher league at the time, but Jalal was very competitive. And every year they played, they were very competitive. And we actually beat them a few times, and they beat us when we would play. We go there to play, and that was a great matchup. You're talking about another one of those experiences where the pressure is on. You know,
I want to hear about those experiences. Like, you had so many good memories with Al-Jalal. You won 2 championships. You played so many Asian, international, Arab games again with Al-Jalal. What was maybe your best experience with the team?
Oh man, the best experience probably was going to Iran.
Going to Iran.
There was so many, because we went to Jordan. I mean, you know, for me, you can understand, I'm from America. So going to Jordan, going to Iran, going to the Philippines, all these were new experiences for me.
Mm.
And all these locations were accomplished because I was in Syria and we were traveling. You have to understand that the NBA, you travel within the United States.
Within the States.
Within the States.
Yeah.
But now, when you're playing abroad, you're traveling to different countries. And so now it is not just about team pride. I'm playing with other players who also playing for national pride. Mm. And so now it's like, wow, you know, going to Iran, you know, again, one of those situations in which obviously in the news, in the media, politics with relations doesn't always get this from, at least from the American view, doesn't get, you know, it's just due. And from my personal experience, I had the opportunity to walk around in Iran, you know, and meet some people and talk to some people and really have some good conversations, you know, from a humanistic experience. And so for me, I thought that was very, very important and very eye-opening. And I even had one person, you know, tell me, listen, when you go back to America, just tell people that we don't hate them. And I thought that was a very powerful message.
Yeah.
Very, yeah. And for them, they didn't have to say that. Why should they care what Americans think? So to have that as a message, you know, I really felt the responsibility to take my experience and my message back responsibly.
This is so interesting to hear about this, to be honest, from you, about traveling around the world, all these talks you had, the experience with the team as well. But I want to go back in time a bit and talk about different experience. Last year, unfortunately, we lost a legend in Kobe Bryant. It was so sad.
Yeah.
You actually played with him. You played with other legends like Shaquille O'Neal and other players in the Lakers, and you won the NBA. How was it like to play with Kobe?
Playing with Kobe was a great experience. Having the opportunity to see greatness at that level is rare. And when I got to LA, the one thing I noticed, you know, and we talked about this, comparing Mishal Mandalay, is his work ethic. And that he was very different from anybody else that I have seen up until that point. And then, you know, I had played with other superstars, but his approach to basketball, his approach to his craft was at an extreme high level, like no other. To watch his discipline, to watch the fact that he didn't really go out and do things and party like some of the other guys like we did. You know, he was able to really maintain his focus, and he understood what his goals were. He established his goals early, and he created a discipline and a structure system that would allow him to accomplish those goals. So that was the one thing that I noticed right away, was training. There's training and then there's training. You know, most of us trained, you know, to keep our body. And then you had Kobe, who trained to be ahead of everybody else. And Kobe was able to train at certain times, you know, at 5 a.m., you know, before our practice. You know, he would practice before our practice and take his body through, you know, rigorous regimens and things of that nature to make sure that come game time, he was light years ahead of everyone else. And so the one thing that stuck out was his work ethic.
Was really an amazing player. It's really important to hear from you because you had the experience of playing with him. Now we're back to a message to all Syrian and Al Jala fans. I want you to say a message to them, preferably in Arabic if you can.
Oh, man. I wish I could, man. I have no, man, my Arabic is so bad. I haven't had anybody.
I can help you. We can cheat together, you know?
Well, what I really would like to say to the Syrian fans, number one, is really thank you for welcoming me into the country. It has been an awesome experience. I grew up in Syria. You know, I became a better man in Syria. And so I guess my message for the Syrian people would be is that I had an opportunity to experience unconditional love, you know, in Syria. Yes, the people love Samaki Walker, the basketball player, the fact that I played with the Lakers. But I walked away feeling like they got a chance to love Samaki Walker, the person. And which is rare in today's society, given the fact that in the States, everything is about trying to be someone that you're not. And so I felt that my time in Syria was very organic. And so I want to thank the Syrian people for providing the platform, for allowing me to grow. Because of that, it really opened my eyes up on a global scale about the world. And so I want the Syrian people to know that my time in Syria was not only an amazing experience, but it was one that was needed. It was one of education, one of enlightenment, one in which that is a lifetime experience that I've been able to deliver to my kids. And hopefully one day, I will be able to return and be able to not only just experience the culture again, but be able to bring basketball back as well and be able to help basketball grow in Syria. That's always been a vision of mine. I would like to get with guys like Mishel and Sari and the guys who are from that area. I had a vision one day of possibly coming back doing, you know, camps and clinics, bringing back the information that we've been able to gather from playing around the world and hopefully do some things there. And so to the Syrian people, I want to say thank you, you know, and I love you.
Thank you so much for you, Samaki, actually, for all these kind words, touching words to all the Syrian people. I love your message.
Pleasure.
Personally, I love your message. Hopefully as well, the Syrian people will find it very touching, very kind. You're a great person, a fantastic player, a superstar. We had the pleasure to see you play in Syria, playing in the NBA, and have you as well with us today talking about your experience in very genuine way to the Syrian people, in very spontaneous way as well.
No, thank you for having me. I mean, like I said, it's been a great experience. Hopefully that it's good to see you doing this, the next generation who are, like you said yourself, you were such a young kid when I was playing. So I'm honored to have the next generation to be such aware of the basketball, you know, that took place before him. So respect to you for taking the opportunity to take the time to know your history and things of that nature. And the Syrian people should be proud of you for that.
Thank you so much. We're so proud of you actually for coming and adding value to the Syrian Basketball League, to Nadi Al-Jala as well.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank you again for your time, and hopefully we meet soon.
Absolutely. I would love that. And let's keep in contact.
We will keep in contact. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care.